On the Sports Zone, I am Mike Aglioloro. Today, we're going to wrap up our division by division preview of the 2014 Major League Baseball season with the National League East. Now, this, of course, is a mix of a lot of different types of teams. You have two teams whose best days are clearly ahead of it. In the Mets case, it's a question of ownership staying out of its own friggin' way. And in the Marlins case, the question of whether or not you really believe this team can ever have any sort of long-term solution in mind, as long as the biggest crook in baseball, Jeffrey Loria, is running the team. And then in the Phillies case, you have a team of all these veterans whose best days are clearly behind it, and can they rebound? And then you have the two clear-cut teams that are going to fight for this division and probably both make the playoffs this year, one as the division winner and one as the wild card team in the Atlanta Braves and Washington Nationals. We'll start at the bottom of this division. Florida Marlins, like I said, they have a lot of youth, a lot of guys whose best days are ahead of it. You saw the phenom Jose Fernandez pitch a full season last year and show that he has top 10 potential in the major leagues. And of course, they have Giancarlo Stanton, the young power hitter, one of the few young players in the game who truly has the potential to hit 40, 50 home runs in a season. Then you also have guys, the rest of the outfield is the young Marcell Ozuna, came up, made a decent impact with them middle of last season. And they have their young 22-year-old Christian Yelich, who's probably going to start the season as their left fielder. But other than that, they took a chance on a lot of guys who are looking to rebound, one-year make-right deals. They signed guys like Rafael Furcal, Casey McGee, and Garrett Jones, all these castaways. And you have a lot of young guys who you got to figure they're going to rush to the majors because that's what they like to do. Starting with guys like Justin Nicolini, you could see him later in the year, and someone like Andrew Heaney, left-hander ranked by MajorLeagueBaseball.com as their top prospect in their farm system. But the problem with them will always be you always have to wonder when the next fire sale is going to kick in. With that, we'll move to the Philadelphia Phillies. Phillies still have guys like Ryan Howard and Chase Utley, Cliff Lee, Cole Hamels, who will probably start the first month of the season on the disabled list. And they signed guys like Marlon Byrd and A.J. Burnett to 1- and 2-year contracts each. A lot of guys you got to figure whose best days are behind them. In Byrd and Burnett's case, they've come off a couple years where they've had some of the best years of their career. Byrd put up amazing numbers for the Mets last season. Burnett had a great season for the Pirates. You really have to wonder if these guys are going to repeat these numbers and live up to these contracts. Bottom line is the Phillies is another team, especially this year. You have to wonder if they could be in fire sale mode if things go wrong by June or July. And as for the Mets, once Matt Harvey went down, 2014 kind of went out the window. And we're going to talk about the Mets separately. Bottom line is you got to hope that the young players come up. I do think this team has improved off of last year. Hopefully the second half could be where you see guys like Rafael Montero, Noah Syndergaard, possibly Wilmer Flores if they let him play shortstop. And I do think you're looking at good offensive seasons out of Travis d'Arnaud and Juan Lagares to go with what they bring from a defensive standpoint. But the battle for this division will always come down to the Atlanta Braves and Washington Nationals, at least the way that's been the last couple years. Last year, everyone thought the Nationals were going to run away with this division. They floundered early, and the Braves completely took off with the division. This year, it's going to be a little more difficult for the Braves, especially with the developments over the last couple weeks. Two of their top 4 starters, Chris Medlin and Brandon Beachy, will be undergoing their second Tommy John surgeries of their careers and will be missing the entire 2014 season. And Mike Minor, their top left-handed pitcher, will be missing the first half of April with his own injury. They signed Gavin Floyd in the offseason, and it's funny, they really signed him as a flyer. He was coming off of his own Tommy John surgery, expected to be back in May. Now there could be a big onus on him when he comes back, as right now, by the time he comes back potentially in May, the rotation will be Mike Minor, Julio Terahan, Irvin Santana, who they signed to a 1-year contract 2 weeks ago, young Alex Wood, who will be entering his first full season in the rotation. And then you have a lot of guys, prospect David Hale, who at 26 years old is a little old to be a prospect. You have the returning Freddie Garcia. So Atlanta right now has definitely taken a step back with the injuries to Medlin and Beachy. Other than that, you really have to like what Atlanta did this offseason in terms of retaining their young core. They signed Jason Hayward to a 2-year deal, Chris Kimbrel, the young closer, Julio Terahan, the young starter, Andrelton Simmons, who should be their shortstop for the next decade, all headlined by young Freddie Freeman, who is turning into one of the top 5 first basemen in the major leagues. They wrapped him up to an 8-year contract. And that, of course, goes with the Upton brothers, who they brought in last season. Justin Upton had a pretty good season. B.J. Upton floundered. Between him and Dan Uggla, if they can get anything out of those two, this lineup is as dangerous as ever, even with Brian McCann going to the Yankees. For the Nationals, they added Doug Fister, who's pitched very well with the Detroit Tigers the last couple seasons, to a staff that is headlined by Steven Strasburg, Jordan Zimmerman, and Gio Gonzalez. If their lineup can ever stay healthy for the course of a season, you have the young Bryce Harper, who outside of Mike Trout is probably one of the most talented outfielders in the game. You still have Jason Worth. You still have Ryan Zimmerman, again, one of the better third basemen in the game when healthy. Daynard Spahn was added to lead off last season, and, solid, not spectacular. You still have guys like Adam LaRoche, and this will be the first season of another guy taken in the first round of the draft a couple years ago by the Nationals, Anthony Rendon, who will be playing at second base this season. And you do have Ian Desmond at shortstop, coming off of a couple spectacular seasons in his own right. So if this lineup ever stays healthy over the course of the season, they could be dangerous. And this season in particular, where Atlanta is reeling from a pitching standpoint, the time is now if you're the Washington Nationals. But because it is the Atlanta Braves, and because of what happened last year when I picked the Nationals to win the division, at this moment, I'm giving the slight advantage, 1-game advantage, to the Atlanta Braves. Even though one way or another, both teams make the playoffs. One as the NL East division winner, and one as the wild card winner. So again, it's going to come down to the Braves and Nationals. I do think the Mets will win 78 games this year. We'll talk about that later in the week. Phillies are floundering. They need to completely blow up that team and start over. And the Marlins fill the cellar of this division. Check out some of the other articles on ThisIsSportsZone.com. Tom Lembo has his look at the young quarterback's role in today's NFL. Jay Rofsky has his look at Sean Livingston's miraculous recovery from a gruesome knee injury a few years ago. And at some point, you're also going to see Brian Rofsky's look at the New York Yankees 2014 season. Check us out. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter at WeAreSportsZone. Send us any comments and questions you may have. Thanks for watching, folks. For This Is SportsZone, I am Mike Aglioloro. We'll see you next time, folks.